afraid, be very afraid. Be afraid. It's the end of our days, heard what I said now? God put me on earth to burn this motherfucker straight down. Everybody dead now, everybody dead.
Well, the things that I'm about to say about Madam Web are not kind at all, ladies and gentlemen. What a fucking shit show. What a fucking waste of fucking time this movie was. Excuse all of my French, but I am extremely upset. I am very angry. I'm a fan of Marvel. I'm a fan of DC. I'm a fan of comics. I'm a fan of cartoons. And I'm also a fan of fictional lore. But when it came down to this movie, I almost just ripped apart everything that was Marvel, everything that was Sony, everything that was Spider-Man and Spider-Woman related. I almost ripped everything in my possession apart. That's how mad this movie made me. It's crazy. Anyway, we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to dive too deep into the film, but I am going to just point out some things that I wanted to highlight. So let's talk about the villain first and foremost, Ezekiel Simmons. This man was pulling off the greatest heist of human history, and never once was it ever being reported that he stole this, that he stole that. He was doing everything apparently undetected, so that could very much explain why the suit looked the way that it looked. It was a stealth suit. It was all black. It had very little red lines, but when in the correct lighting, you can see those red lines. You can see the detail, obviously. But throughout the darkness of the film, it was very hard to see him at times. So it made sense for the suit. It worked well. But his intentions were too malicious for no fucking reason whatsoever. No one ever came to him as a threat aside from those three girls. So why did he feel he needed to lash out on every female character he came across? All of those female cops choked them out. The girls choking them out. It was just a nonstop choking sort of like marathon running on. He was just strong arming everyone, choking them out. Now hear me out. I can understand that he has this like vice grip. He can use, his poisonous venom. So that could explain why he had to choke people out and stuff like that. But he really didn't have to choke out female characters, because every other male character that came at him, all of the cops and all of the other innocent bystanders that were male characters, he didn't choke them. So I don't know what was his aggression and what was his obsession with choking people out, but he done it. Now his story is this. He keeps having this recurring dream or this recurring nightmare of him meeting his doom to the hands of three Spider Women. Now, in order for him to, sort of stop the reality that is forming, he has to kill them in the present. Now, these three girls, we've seen so many promo images of them in their suits and stuff like that, and I kid you not, from my perspective, the suits look great. What we saw on screen, it looked great. It worked well for me, but it wasn't on screen long enough. And the reason why it wasn't on screen long enough, because the freaking girls didn't have no powers. There, I said it. It was on screen for a few seconds, and it was only to be a part of a future dream sequence. This was the recurring dream that he had, him facing off against those three Spider Girls and them totally kicking his ass and him falling to his death. Now, we get to see those girls and they're just basic teenagers going through the dramas of being a teenager. Parents not being around enough, school being overbearing and stuff like that. So yeah, basic situation here. But the girls have no powers. Now, randomly, these girls, they keep getting themselves connected to Madam Web, aka Cassandra Webb. Now, she ends up getting her powers at birth. The spider that bit her was literally supposed to save her mom's life, but instead, her mom ends up kicking the dust and she dies early. She ends up giving birth and she sees baby Cassandra for a little bit and then she passes out and dies. Now, Cassandra goes out in the world, motherless. She raises herself, and we flash forward to 2003, 30 years later. She's working as a EMT, an emergency response person. She's with the ambulance. She's driving the ambulance truck. And throughout this movie, you just see her just driving and crashing into shit, just being extremely reckless. Now, she ends up meeting up with these girls through what is known as, I would say, like a sixth sort of sense. You know what I mean? They're just in the, the proper place at the proper time. She meets one of the girls in the hospital. Then she meets one of the girls when she almost hits her with the ambulance truck. She gets flipped off. And then one of the other girls that she meets ends up, living in the same building that she lives in, ironically. So that's their connection. They ended up getting connected through these random events. So now Cassie, she starts to see the future, right? She starts getting her premonitions, if you will, her powers, and she doesn't know how to control it. And then she starts to work on trying to control the abilities and stuff like that. She notices that she needs to help these three girls out because of Ezekiel Simmons targeting them and he's after them. So she ends up figuring out who the man is, obviously, underneath the mask, underneath this fake makeshift Spider-Man suit, if you will. She identifies him and they identify each other. Ezekiel, this whole entire time, keeps asking the most stupidest question. How does the girls know my next move? You know what I mean? He keeps trying to get to them and Cassie keeps, being one step ahead of him. He's not putting it together that obviously this girl, she can see the fucking future, dude. Like, are you serious? That's how they're able to escape your clutches, because they have a freaking guide pointing them in the correct direction. Then we get the whole situation with Ezekiel Simmons. He's stealing NSA technology that is probably years ahead of its time. In 2003, they had facial recognition, that's what it's called, right? Facial recognition. They had the technology to literally go in his dream, take the images, de-age them, and remove their mask from them. And he was able to identify who the girls were. Now, he had to get them, as I mentioned, before they get to him. So now he's in present day time chasing 3 teenage girls throughout New York City, which is kind of crazy. Anyway, this whole entire time, Cassandra's sort of like cheating death, you know what I mean? She does meet her maker, if you will, a couple of times. She falls off the bridge, falls face first into the water. Water rushes in, it forms a little spider web on the windshield, and then, you get the whole sequence of events with these sort of mystical water webs forming around her, and then you can see all of the futuristic events and everything happening all at once, and she's able to weave the webs, and she's able to control it, etc., etc. She's getting her powers. Okay, cool, we get it, Now, eventually, she, tells the girls, like, listen, I'm going to step away. I have to do some research and everything like that. So she manages to fly all the way to the fucking Amazon within the same day period and comes back to the girls. How is that possible? Whatever. Okay? So she flies to the Amazon. She gets the information that she needs, etc., etc. In order to stop Ezekiel, they all need to work together as a team. So they end up, starting to trust Cassandra because she's able to control her abilities a little bit more. She's a little bit more accurate with things. And they get to their final fight where they end up, defeating Ezekiel, obviously. And we see the final fate of Cassandra. She falls into the same water that she fell in towards the beginning of the movie, but this time around she sort of like get crushed by this debris, and then there's a exploding firework that blows up, like, you know, right in her face, which takes her vision. Then she gets her sort of like comic accurate suit. She has the goggles, and then she has this like wheelchair that she sits in, and you see the future sequence play out. The 3 Spider Women are there, and then she's there in her mystical form, or astral form, if you will. And, you know, that's the start of their journey as working Spider Women, vigilantes, or whatever the case may be. Story literally all over the place. Now let's talk about these little breadcrumbs. So you get little breadcrumbs for like characters such as Aunt May. We get young Ben Parker, who's apparently seeing someone, but we also get a sort of like vibe that Ben had a sort of, you know, like, I would say he had feelings for Cassie, but then it was kind of swept underneath the rug once he finally found someone. And then we also get like hints at a baby Peter Parker being born in this universe, but this Peter Parker would not be Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, nor Tobey Maguire. So it's just going to be a randomly brand new Peter Parker with no connections to anything else. We also get like, man, it's just really bad, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it sounds interesting when I'm talking about it, but it was just literally very, very bad all over the place. As I said, once again, the main plot was to basically stop the girls from killing Ezekiel, but they had no powers to begin with. They only get powers in the future. They don't discover any powers in the beginning of the film and throughout the duration of the film.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Matter how I do it, I just tryna make my mama proud of me. I hope my mama proud of me, cause I dubbed college just so I could focus on a dream. I know my mama died of me, salute me, now she down with me. Now 2 bros going back and forth, sibling rivalry. Who this guy gotta be, do numbers like the lottery. The coldest every winter, every summer, nothing hot as me. And if I spring up, bet my nigga on the side of me, ready for a war.